Aggressive behavior on screen that lacks consequences portrayed as justified, or is it rewarded, will have a greater effect on children. When violence is committed by an attractive or charismatic hero with whom the child identifies, the effect of that violence will be greater. When the child's attention is focused on the violence on the screen, causing the child to be engaged or aroused, the impact is greater. If the child sees the violence in the show as being realistic, reflecting real life, the impact will be greater, rather. I would now like to move away from movies and television and their media violence and move on to my second point, which focuses on video games. Now, a common argument used by advocates of video games is that the majority of gamers are adults. Statistics show that between 40 to 50% of computer game players are women, and that the average age of players is increasingly, currently standing at about 31 to 33. The American Psychological Association summarizes the issue as, quote, psychological research confirms that violent video games can increase children's aggressions, but that parents moderate the negative effects. And the sad fact of the matter is that is not true. I'll go on to that later in my second point today. Craig Anderson has testified before the U.S. Senate on the issue, and his media analysis of these studies have shown 5 consistent effects: increased aggressive behavior thoughts, increased psychological arousal, and decreased pro-social helping behavior, as well as aggressive thought tendencies and affect tendencies. Video game addiction, or more broadly, video game overuse, is excessive or compulsive use of computer and video games that interferes with daily life. Instances have been reported in which users play compulsively, isolating themselves from other forms of social contact and focusing almost entirely on in-game achievements rather than broader life events. In essence, they're roped in. Now, I'd like to move to something that people bring up, and that is the ESRB rating system in the United States. That's an acronym for the rating system that we have in our country that rates video games. Now, many of those ratings are early childhood. Actually, listing rather from beginning to end, there's early childhood, everyone 10 plus, teen, mature, adults only, and rating pending. Now, these are available to everyone. However, parents do not generally even come across the rating system, never see the packaging, never see the cartridges. Not to mention, everybody has an older sibling or someone at school or an associate that they can get very, very heavy content, AO, adult only games, very, very easily. So you can see, mixed with all these things, why violence in video games can be so detrimental in the youth's mind. I'd like to deal with another point, my third point, and that is the internet and violent media. The internet, a new survey from the CS Mott Children's Hospital, rated that the internet was a more serious health threat to children than school violence, sexually transmitted diseases, abuse, and neglect. A recent Gallup poll indicated that 82% of those surveys said the internet was at least partially to blame for the Columbine high school attack, compared with 60% who thought easy access to guns was to blame, a very staggering percentage. The attack has sparked new rounds of debates between cyber rights activists and those children's activists who supported the 1996 Communications Decency Act. According to news reports, Dylan Killold and Eric Harris used the internet to learn how to make the bombs and plan the attack that killed 15 in Littleton, you're probably familiar with. The incident has sparked debate over whether access to such information on the web may pose a threat to society and should be regulated. The Littleton shootings have prompted some national leaders to wonder if publications like The Anarchist Cookbook are too easily accessed on the internet. I quote, "We're looking for ways to try at least to help parents deal with what their children can get off the internet, and a way to use ordinary law tactics effectively against people who are trying to do illegal things over the internet," President Clinton told high school students some years ago, "but it's very difficult." Well, news today is it's even more difficult. Dylan McClain wrote in Wired recently, "Whether it's bomb-making instructions, pornography, or violent movies, linking the internet to mayhem has become a popular American pastime." I began my speech today with the story of a young man who was overly exposed to the medium of video games that was far too strong for his age group. Violence in the media does in fact cause negative effects to the minds of children. I covered today television and movies, video games, and why the internet could possibly cause the greatest harm. Something to remember is that violence in the media doesn't just affect those exposed directly to it. It affects all of us, young and old. Thank you.